It's a sad day in American history. A lot of people are crying right now. There's been many tears shed. We haven't seen a day this tragic this year since McConnell announced he wasn't going to be majority leader anymore after this term. So I just want to warn you: if this is too much for you, I get it. Former United Nations Ambassador Nikki Haley formally suspended her presidential campaign Wednesday and called on former President Trump to earn her supporters' votes heading into the general election. It is now up to Donald Trump to earn the votes of those in our party and beyond it who did not support him, and I hope he does that, Haley said in remarks to supporters in Charleston, South Carolina. At its best, politics is about bringing people into your cause, not turning them away. And our conservative cause badly needs more people. This is now his time for choosing. They always have to put that Reagan stuff in there. Haley's departure from the race came the morning after Trump won all but one of the Super Tuesday contests, bringing him closer to the nomination. Haley scored her first state win in Vermont, but Trump dominated the evening. Over the weekend, she also won Washington, D.C.'s Republican primary. In her remarks Wednesday, Haley emphasized the importance of party unity and congratulated Trump on his likely primary victory. In all likelihood, Donald Trump will be the Republican nominee when our party convention meets in July. I congratulate him and wish him well, Haley said. I wish anyone well who would be America's president. Our country is too precious to let our differences divide us. I have always been a conservative Republican and always supported the Republican nominee, she continued. While Trump did not mention Haley in his election remarks Tuesday, he took to Truth Social on Wednesday morning to criticize her as she dropped out. Nikki Haley got trounced last night in record-setting fashion, despite the fact that Democrats, for reasons unknown, are allowed to vote in Vermont and various other Republican primaries, the former president wrote. President Biden, on the other hand, congratulated Haley on her run in the statement following her announcement. It takes a lot of courage to run for president. That's especially true in today's Republican Party, where so few dare to speak the truth about Donald Trump, the president said. Nikki Haley was willing to speak the truth about Trump, about the chaos that always followed him, about his inability to see right from wrong, and about his cowering before Vladimir Putin. So this really didn't surprise. Well, the only little bit of news this is that now Trump is even more so the presumptive nominee than he was before, even though we already said before, I stated that the race was really over after his New Hampshire victory, because that was a state that seemed like it was, as some people said, built in a lab for Haley to beat Trump in, considering that it had this open primary, and a lot of people weren't exactly feeling the Democrats this year as far as their contest. It's incredible to me that you can have someone who really has no chance of winning after the first, I'd say, 3 states. And we start thinking, okay, maybe she's staying in this because she wants to see what happens with Trump's legal cases, right? Maybe that's the reason that she's decided to switch over, or otherwise not get out when she could have. But it doesn't seem as if that was her motive now that she's dropped out. I mean, we're still, half the country hasn't voted, and that was always her rationale. I'm not getting out when most of the states haven't even voted, but now they have, and half of them, at rather 20 something. So I guess she's like, all right, that's enough. Really, it's a combination of not seeing any improvement in her voting numbers, just lagging further and further behind Trump. Some donors who probably don't feel like this is worth getting involved with, also telling her, hey, get out. So those two things I believe are the main factors. If I were to say anything positive about her, is that she was actually very smart when it came to her debate performances, which is why she was able to last longer than, Ramaswamy, DeSantis, Pence, really anyone that's not Christie, because her commentary was directed at trying to sound strong or otherwise informed, but also being careful to not criticize Trump. And that performance over the course of several debates elevated her profile, but at the same time, her inability to criticize Trump or go after him in a really direct, strong, aggressive position before it was just the two of them in the race, I think hurt her in the short term of actually being able to get people to vote for her over Trump. Because much of what she said about him, right, that you want to convict a criminal in the White House, things like that, I can agree with. Do you want someone that's facing all these charges, even if if you didn't believe it was accurate, which I don't know how 91 criminal charges are all made up, but even if you believe that conspiracy theory, Do you actually want to have the Republican nominee, the person that you want to defeat Biden, having to spend a good chunk of their time going back and forth between courtrooms? But unfortunately for her and her campaign, she just waited too long to start going after Trump as aggressively as she should have. I mean, not even a few. I don't even think it was a week ago. She said, and I reported it that voting for Trump was like suicide for the just like really strong rhetoric, but it was too little, too late. Which makes me believe a lot of these people don't even actually want to be president because I said before, you can't run against somebody and not criticize them. It doesn't make any sense if you're actually trying to win the office. If you're just there to play patty cake like Vivek was, then okay, that's his strategy. He might be picked for VP. But my point is, it's not a smart strategy to just sit there and not criticize the person you're running against. But it looks like we're headed for a all but confirmed Trump Biden rematch, and it certainly was not the thing I wanted in the slightest. I'm actually cringing as the possibility just dawns on me. Like, wow, we're really about to see 2020 the sequel. But if there was anything to take away from this campaign, it's that sometimes people, when they run for office, they can do smart things, even if they say dumb things. Like Haley, really, I found so obnoxious with the way she talked about LGBT people. Um, there's a term she uses to describe a group that I don't even want to say because I'm worried I'll get in trouble for saying it. But my biggest thing with her, as from a praise standpoint, was that at the very least, when she was put in these positions of televised appearances, she was able to sound semi competent compared to the rest of her opponents. But she just wasn't able to ever get to a point where she was a viable alternative to Trump. Because even like when it was just her and Trump in the race, he still was 20 something points ahead of her. And yes, she closed the gap in many cases from 50 points, 40 points. Certainly outperformed her polling, but it just was never enough. Like someone like DeSantis, there was a time where they had polls where before he entered, he was beating Trump. Um, I told you before, I don't think Republicans in 2024 are going to would nominate a woman. I didn't want to be correct about that because I don't like accepting that your gender or your race or whatever is the main reason people wouldn't support you. But I don't see her as being any worse than DeSantis. So that's all I'll add to that. But her campaign's legacy, the main thing to take away from it is that you can have a person who, from the time they get in to the time that they get out, has like no chance of winning the nomination, and they will still end up running for president for over a year. She was polling horribly at the start of last year, and even after a year of campaigning, she's doing better, but it's still not enough to close the gap between her and Trump. But she stays in, even after getting smacked up in all these different states, and now is out, seemingly with nothing to show for it other than 2 victories. Which, wow, it took this long for a woman to win a Republican primary. That's kind of sad, honestly. But well, again, just further proves my point. I just think she is someone who's a good case study of how to be decent when it comes to social media and debate performances, but be absolutely atrocious when it comes to timing. Like DeSantis could be criticized for getting in the race too late in May of last year. Haley can be criticized for taking too long to really aggressively pursue her opponent. And anytime you have someone who doesn't want to criticize the person they're running against, they have doomed their campaign. I absolutely believe that. So if I could assign 3 reasons she didn't win, it would be a lack of name recognition, because a lot of people don't know who she is. Didn't know who she was, rather. Refusal to criticize Trump. That's a big one. And 3, I don't believe Republicans are going to support women for president. I'm sorry. I didn't believe that when this race started. I'm not believing it at this point either. Maybe in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, but not anytime soon as far as I'm concerned. And look, Haley's problems are more than just like I'm not saying anyone's gender. Like if you ask me, do I think Hillary lost because she was a female? No. She ended up getting more votes than Trump after all. But I just think that a lot of these candidates have problems that are not properly addressed by the people who work for them. I don't think anyone that was in Haley's corner said, "Hey, look, if you want to win this primary, you need to make Trump look like the biggest garbage candidate. He lost to this man whose brain is rotting. You need to go after him." And she just wasn't willing to do that until the election season. The primary was damn near almost over. I mean, I give it to David Pakman. He said it, too little, too late. Strong attacks on Trump, but they came at the 11th hour. And really, that's what her campaign boils down to. A brief surge in those last couple of months, but it was just too little, too late.